believe we are about to be live. Nobody get
Can
canceled.
Oh shit. Can you oh, hello? Where'd Dallas go?
You gotta hit got it. Dallas, you gotta hit got it.
Yeah, can you just send the YouTube link in the group me or something? So that I can put it on my story.
There we go. All right. Muted on that side. All right. I'm gonna bump the YouTube links real quick.
We're good.
All right, you're back. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. I'm gonna just dump the YouTube links probably. So they're about to go on both chats, so you can just grab them off there.
So did you not have a lot of people volunteer to be a part of the podcast?
Oh no, we had plenty of them. They
Oh,
just
okay.
none of them know anything about college football. So
I see.
Wait for the NFL one next week. That's when everybody wants to be.
we have 8 people that currently want to be on the show.
I see.
So we're gonna have to work on. I think we're gonna have to
We have
work
to
on
do
divisions.
tryouts.
We're gonna have to do like divisions. Like you get to zoom in for the AFC North. You get to zoom
Okay.
in for the AFC South.
Division breakdowns. Wow, we're gonna establish a media empire.
I'm telling you. Me and Dallas have been watching.
I've been watching.
Did you get the link from the group me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I just gotta.
currently.
Can I? Oh, that's right. If I talk, it doesn't show up on my screen. But
I have to send it into 2 chats because it doesn't like making things complicated. All right, you gentlemen ready to go?
Go.
yes, sir.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We are glad to be back for our brand new first episode of the season. It's technically season 2 of the SM's Around the Board show. This week we got college football coming at you since we're just getting in. I know we hit a few games last week, and technically we had week 0, but we're not counting that. Nobody really huge played last night, other than if you guys missed out on that beautiful Pittsburgh and West Virginia game, as well as you guys watched the Boilermakers unfortunately lose. So without further ado, it's me, Austin Anderson, and Dallas. We're here to tell you guys about everything we know about college football. Just to preface this, we're not experts unless you ask Austin. He'll be
No, I
expert.
definitely am an expert. So
Yeah,
please address me as
refer
such.
to Austin for the expertise.
Yeah, we're going to refer to Austin. If you guys have any questions, fire them at him. But other than that, we're ready to go. First off, our first category, we're going to go through some of the biggest storylines and hear what you guys have to say and what we have to say. So the first one is Ohio State the dominant team to watch? Who'd like to open up with this one?
Well, I'd have to say I don't think they're the most dominant team. I think that there are still some question marks on their defense. I know they didn't really field. I thought that their defense's ELO rating was somewhere in the 40s last year, but I definitely think they are the runaway favorites to be the best offense in college football. Like they literally have the best players at 4 of their positions. It's insane. Like Stroud, Njigba, Travion Henderson, and then I forget what the name of the tackle is, but it was like a 5-star tackle who was really good last year too. So I think we'll have to see how their defense does. It's Ohio State, so I'm sure they've retooled, because I definitely think their defense was a weakness for them last year. But I think we can't really crown them the dominant team until we see their defense first.
Well, I will say, brand new defensive coordinator for Ohio State, Jim Knowles, coming from Oklahoma State last year, is going to bring a lot on the scheme end of it. Really, he's going to bring a lot of pressures on the run scheme, but also allow them to play in a very good coverage. And I mean, you watch them play. I know Jim Knowles did not coach against Notre Dame in the bowl game, but he did see Notre Dame. So I think that kind of gives them a leg up this week on what they can do, kind of where their personnel is going to be. I think you're going to see a lot of blitz. They're going to see quite a bit of blitz and pressure heavy scheme with just the fact that there's a very crippling effect in the Big Ten of offensive linemen.
Yeah, I completely agree with both you guys. And Austin, on the defensive side of the ball, that's exactly what I want to see from Ohio State early against Notre Dame is, can they get stops straight away? Because the offense really doesn't have any question marks for me. Smith and Jibba, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 1 and 2, they will get open. And I'm sure there's a wide receiver 3 on Ohio State that we don't even know yet. That will be a beast as well. DeJuan Jones at tackle. I don't know if that's the 5-star you were talking about, Austin, but
I think he was somebody. I don't know if he was a former 5-star, but he was like top 5 at his position last year, something of that nature.
Yeah, I know DeJuan Jones plays right tackle for him. And then obviously Travion Henderson as well. Their running game should be very well. And CJ Stroud, man, I think front runner for the Heisman.
Okay, so Austin, you there?
Yeah, what's up? What's good?
I couldn't hear you for a minute.
Oh, whoopsies.
So, are we set on the Ohio State, or what do we think about this game? I have my own personal opinion that I think it's going to be a runaway show for Ohio State the entire game. I think from that first kickoff, it's going to be a lot of Ohio State's going to get knee deep in the trenches, and they're going to get dirty. And no offense to Notre Dame fans, I'm not a fan. Me and Dallas did sit down and watch 30 minutes worth of Tyler Buchner. A lot of his film. I'm not a fan completely. His spring game wasn't impressing. His throwing ability, really hope fall camp did something for him because he looks like he's a big threat with his legs. But I hope that they have a little bit of a different scheme because I feel like Ohio State's seen that scheme last year from them when he is in, that he can use his legs, and there'll be a lot of contain and a lot of keeping guys in the box to make sure he's not running.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a matter of keep up, you know. I think that Notre Dame, I feel like historically when they get put up against bigger teams outside of their own little fun, the Notre Dame division, I feel like they can sometimes struggle to keep up points wise because they're basically a glorified Big Ten team. And I think that if there's any team that can absolutely just lap you out of the gate this year, it's definitely Ohio State. So I could see it where like Ohio State, like Notre Dame could put up like a solid like 25 points and still not cover just because Ohio State can just score at will.
Yeah, I think Ohio State will probably put up 40 plus in most of their games this year. So we'll see if Notre Dame can get any stops at all. I believe the first drive of the game is most telling. So if Notre Dame can contain Ohio State just a little bit or either stop them, that'll tell a little bit, but I still think Ohio State runs away with this one.
All righty, gentlemen. We still want to talk about Ohio State, or we want to move on to the next one?
I mean, you know where I'm from. You know, I have to talk about Ohio State as little as I can, you know.
All righty. So we're going to transition to another powerhouse of college football, the staple for the past 10, 15 years, Alabama. Do we think Alabama is still that top dog in all of college football, or is somebody here this year to knock them off their throne?
Unless some other team comes up with like a Heisman candidate quarterback that also has a good roster, absolutely not. I think that this is like Alabama's stomp year. They have the best quarterback in the country because I feel like the thing with Alabama is that they've always had the best players at every position except quarterback. They've always had a great defense, always had great receivers, always had a great line, but they've always gotten away with having like good, not great quarterbacks, you know, like Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts. now they have unequivocally, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country, who is Bryce Young. And I think that when you add that and that he's returning, improvement year over year, when you add the fact that, because quarterback is so important, when you have the best quarterback along with the rest of Alabama's roster, I just don't think it's going to be even close.
Yeah, it comes down to probably their game against Georgia to me. And I don't know much about Georgia this year, but I know they've lost a lot on the defensive side of football, obviously. So Alabama's still a top dog, definitely.
I'm still in agreement that Alabama's number one for me, but I could see it that there's a random game in the year where we see a middle of the pack SEC team kind of come out of the gates and just sock them in the mouth. I mean, it's a good Tennessee team, a really good Texas A&M team. Now on their ranking, I'd put them at 15 personally. 6 is a little egregious, but those guys know what they're talking about. I think you just, for Alabama, sometimes it's that like keeping that mental edge all game. They struggle in moments where they know they can beat teams, to maybe they just make a mistake or two. And, I think if they really ironed out those kinks in fall camp, I'd say it's probably an Alabama-Ohio State national championship by the end of week 1, if we see both teams just come out and blow the doors off people.
Why that bad? Well, I don't know. Well, Michigan's still going to win the Big Ten, but Ohio State will be good, but whatever. We'll get to that. We'll get more on that later.
We have a comment already talking about Texas, ladies and gentlemen. Also, somebody, River Lightning, I do not know who you are, said Indiana is greater than Ohio State. I'm sorry to burst your bubble on that. I think we're all in disagreement.
I think I might know who that is.
Is that Richie?
No.
All right. Well, so we're on to our next one. This is really the most interesting one, I believe, based on their beginning of the season rankings. It is the Clemson revival real this year? We saw last year with a very depleted roster, not a lot of star-studded talent. They really kind of fell behind everybody else. But this year they've loaded back up. They're on their second year with DJ Ugalea. I think that's how you say his name. I hope so. I probably butchered it, but Ugalele. Do you think this is Clemson's year to be like jumping?
I think they'll be better than they were last year, and I think they'll be in the mix for the CFP just because of how weak. Actually, the ACC isn't really that bad this year, but I just think it all comes. I feel like this will be the key talking point for me, at least for the rest of the podcast. Is like it's all going to depend on the quarterback, because Clemson historically gets like a bajillion 5-stars. Like their entire like defense, their 2 starting edge defenders are supposed to go in like the top 5 of the draft next year. Like they're loaded everywhere else. But if you can't field like a Heisman finalist caliber quarterback, it's going to be tough, because they always had that with Trevor Lawrence and they had it with Deshaun Watson. So it's tough, but I think it all just depends on how the quarterback wants to play.
I'm in agreement with DJ's performance. Obviously, he didn't play very well last year, but obviously, and also new coordinators coming in as well. Very intrigued on the defense side of the ball. They were top-ranked defense last year, giving up, I believe, it was 10.8 points per game. But new defensive coordinator, I like to see how they play scheme-wise on defense. I still think they'll be unbelievable on defense and get the ball back to their offense. We'll see how the offense plays. I know usually Clemson has a lot of people go to the draft. Most people are coming back from their starting unit. EJ, Will Shipley, and Kobe Pace at running back. And receiver-wise, EJ Williams should step into a bigger role this year, and Joseph Nagata as well. And if DJ somehow does not play good, we have a very good freshman quarterback that could play.
Oh, you're trying to tell me that Clemson has a good 5-star quarterback probably waiting in the wings? That's crazy.
Cade Klubnik, baby. Cade Klubnik. All right. So I feel like we've got through the Clemson. I think this is the one I'm seeing a lot of people, you guys talking about in the chat. It is the Texas revival for real? I know we just talked about the Clemson revival. Theirs was kind of a one-year stint. Texas has been on this long journey through head coaching. Is this the time they finally do it?
No. I think that's cute. They won't be back. Texas won't be back until they can beat Oklahoma, because the Big 12 has gone through Oklahoma for like the past however many years. Didn't they lost last year, right? That's why. Yeah, that's right.
They lost to Oklahoma State.
But like what? I thought since Lincoln Riley, aka he who shall not be named, got there, they won like 7 straight Big 12 titles. So if they can't beat Oklahoma, they aren't back, because you have to beat Oklahoma to be the best team in the Big 12. I think that's just kind of a rule of thumb. Although I just like Quinn Ewers, he could be really good, but I think that Texas had way more problems than just inconsistent quarterback play. So I guess it's more of these we'll just have to see. But if I were to guess, I would say I don't think so. They're going to be like 3rd behind Oklahoma State and Oklahoma.
I agree with that. And obviously the Big 12 means no defense. There's no defense in the Big 12.
That's the best division.
That is all offense in the Big 12. You saw it last night with Oklahoma State. They put up 58, but they gave up 44 to Central Michigan. So the defense would be non-existent. To me, it would come down to Quinn Ewers, and if he can step in. They do have, I think, one of the top running backs in the Big 12, and Bijan Robinson. He will run for probably 1,200, 1,400 yards, but I don't think they'll be able to keep up with.
I think there's an argument. Yeah, I think there's an argument that Bijan Robinson is the best running back in the country. So I don't think it's just in the Big 12.
I can see that as well. I could see that.
I think personally, it's going to be a really big setup year for if I'm looking at Texas. Can we prove that we have dominance over some of those teams that have been better than us the past 4 years? So I'm saying, you might want to scrape a win against Oklahoma State, maybe one at Baylor. Oklahoma might be another year or 2 out on the line. But with Arch Manning kind of waiting in the wing, I really am interested to see what they do with Quinn Ewers. Does he stay another year after this year to, kind of mentor Arch, or is this going to be the full Arch show and Texas is going to load up? Don't know. Not really completely for certain about Arch either. I know in the Manning family tree, they're fantastic athletes, great NFL players, but at the end of the day, I got to see it to believe it. So that spring game will probably be the biggest tell. But I'm really looking for Texas to make the leap from bad to a little bit better. It's probably not going to be the night and day shift where we see them go 12-0 or 8 or 9-3. I don't think that. I think they're going to lose some games where you're just going to see simple mistakes that have to be ironed out with a better roster and a better built roster.
Yeah, I want to make a quick comment, because I know you talked about that Oklahoma State game that happened last night. So you're never going to guess who bet the under for that game, because Oklahoma State was top 3 last year apparently in like EPA per play allowed defensively. So I think this just proves that even if you do have a good defense in the Big 12, it's not real. It's like, I don't even know what the equivalent is.
Austin, but that EPA per play team was coached under Jim Knowles, who is now at Ohio State.
This is true.
And they had quite the schematics, if I do say so myself. If you're ever interested, spend about 30 minutes of your day, watch some Jim Knowles, what he does. Very interesting, very good schematic guy. So I'm just saying that Ohio State defense might be revitalized, even if they don't have those 5-star flashy guys.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like we're finished up on that one. This has also been another one that's been talked about in the chat. I can see already people are firing off their takes about Pac-12. Is the Pac-12 finally we're in on the Pac-12? We have 4 teams that are really highly rated, according to a lot of analysts, in Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, and USC. Somebody in the chat already said, I got to look and see who said it. Somebody said Utah. is going to take – where did they put that? Utah making the CFP this year. I'm not opposed to it. I thought last year they had a really good year, really good roster. Of course, they did lose Devin Lloyd, who I thought was a very crucial piece of that defense, but I don't know a lot about Utah. Don't know a lot about their quarterback, but to me, they looked pretty legit last year. So if they can carry that momentum over to this year, I wouldn't call it crazy if we saw a Utah team slide through at 12-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest advantage that I feel like Utah has going for them is that they are returning a very good quarterback who I think put together they were in that all-time bowl game with Ohio State. So I think they proved that they can score with anybody. And then who did they beat? Like they mollywomped. Was it Oregon? To get to the and I think they proved that they can score with anybody in that Ohio State game, and I think they proved that they can clamp pretty much anybody with the Oregon game. So I think they're the most complete team in the Pac-12 going forward because they have a lot of year-over-year. What's the word I'm looking for here? Continuity. I think USC is the team to watch out for though, because they have the best wide receiver coming from Pitt, and then of course. I don't even know if I want to speak their names because they betrayed me.
Oklahoma
so
Rebirth
bad.
Home? Oklahoma Rebirth?
Oklahoma West? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that they have the ceiling. I think they have the highest ceiling in the Pac-12. But I think Utah, with their consistency year over year, I think should allow them to be my favorite in the Pac-12.
They're definitely my favorite in the Pac-12. Their schedule looks Pac-12 schedules can be a little bit iffy. They're literally the game comes down to for me is they play Oregon. So if they beat Oregon, that should make them 12-0, and I think they have a legitimate chance at the college football playoff. But no, I don't know how the committee will rank things. Obviously, we probably all agree Alabama, Ohio State will be in the college football playoff. It's those other two teams who will be undefeated from the other conferences and who committee thinks is best.
I agree. We do have some comments. Utah is going to stomp Florida. I'm in complete agreement with that. Whoever River Lightning is, I'm already liking you, as well as that Lincoln Riley overrated. I don't think Lincoln Riley's overrated. I think this is a very mad scientist-y project they have put together. They're really going out, they've said, let's throw all the chips into the center of the table. I mean, they're playing play to win immediately at Vegas. I feel like somebody's going to get burnt. And I don't know if it's going to be Riley. I don't know if it's going to be the players. I just feel like they haven't had enough time to be a cohesive team. And I think that's going to be tough when you play Oregon. You're going to play Utah State. You're going to play Oregon State, who are teams who usually have a lot of turnover between those week one, but from those year one guys to year three guys. They have a lot of turnover. They bring them back in. They keep them in the program. And USC, to me, just doesn't keep those guys. They let them go. They transfer. They do all this. So to me, it feels like, they're in the right step like Texas. It's just going to be a little bit longer than we think.
To me, it's all about the transfers. USC was transfer nation this year. They have plenty of transfers coming in. I think if Caleb Williams can create some continuity in the offense, they'd be a team to look out for. But I don't think they will come out of the Pac-12 or anything like that this year.
It's all just the variance. I feel like Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams provide the high-end variance for USC, as long as I think Jordan Addison, that's his name, the wide receiver from Pitt.
Yes.
I think they provide enough of like that high-end, like 95th percentile outcome for them to even get to the college football playoff. But I think you just have to see kind of how the rest of the roster comes into shape and how they gel as a cohesive unit, because it is a lot of transfers coming in.
Speaking of transfers, this is our last storyline. One of the biggest ones from this year was the disgruntled quarterback of Oklahoma left and took on a brand new, unseemingly new team in the SEC in South Carolina. Austin has them on here as his new beast. Okay. What are the mutual feelings so far or what are the feelings from us about this South Carolina team and where their ceiling is compared to others?
I think they have enough firepower to keep up with any team in the country. So Spencer, I was gonna pull. I was gonna do a little slideshow, but Alex told me that we had to cut it for whatever reason. I don't know why. Also, I didn't do it. Anyways, but I was gonna have a list of quarterbacks with a higher PFF passing grade than Spencer Rattler since 2020, and the list was gonna be nobody because nobody does. Fun fact. On top of that, they also transferred. I forget his name. Let me look it.
Are you talking about Oklahoma's tight end?
Not Stogner. He's really good too. But they also are returning Jaheim Bell, who on a route per route basis actually was the most efficient tight end who is returning this year. Even more efficient on a route per route basis than Brock Bowers. They also have one of the best CB duos in college football. They actually had a top 5 passing EPA per play allowed figure last year because of the strength of their cornerback duo. They have, who is he? Antoine Wells Jr. He was one of the most valuable FCS wide receivers last year. So I think when you figure in Rattler, who's goated, you'll never hear me say otherwise. Solid wide receivers, great tight end depth. Kind of a shaky offensive line, and then good pass protection, and then good pass coverage. I think those are the ingredients for a successful college football team. And I think that South Carolina has all the tools necessary to maybe not push for the CFP because they do have a very tough schedule. But I can definitely see them pushing for 8, maybe 9 wins.
Now, here's my thing. I said it with Lincoln Riley and USC. It feels very mad scientist-y. We've gone out, we've got all these guys, boom, 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 but they've never played together. So I think week 1, week 2, week 3, it's going to be a very big learning curve for this team. And in the SEC, I hate saying it, you don't really have time to learn. You got as much time as you had in fall camp and that spring training. You got all that time together, but now it's pen to paper. You're playing some of the top defenses or some of teams who produce high-end defenders every year. And I think, like Austin said, 6 or 7 wins for me would feel like a South Carolina is really there, but it needs another year. And it needs some young guys to really come in. Their pass rush, their second tier of defenders just doesn't feel adequate yet. It doesn't feel like, they're going to create a lot of force. I know they have 2 really good cornerstones in those corners on their defense, but without a pass rush, you really aren't pressuring a ton of these teams to make quick decisions. You may allow some of these SEC quarterbacks who are very good, and Stetson Bennett, Anthony Richardson down at Florida.
Bennett was very good.
And Will Levis at Kentucky. These guys have lots of time. Herndon Hooker at Tennessee. These guys will have lots of time to look for really good targets that each of their teams possess.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Just Spencer Rattler got a lot of hate last year, but me personally, I believe he should not have got benched at Oklahoma. Am
I talking to a human being with a brain? That's insane.
That's just me. I think they put into perspective that he's caused all the losses, and I just think just one mistake a game could cost you a game. I don't believe that. I believe the defense at Oklahoma was bad last year. I believe they cost a lot of games for him. I believe Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback. So I actually am looking forward to him at South Carolina and see what he can do.
He's the next Patrick Mahomes. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
I will say, I really think this is finally that South Carolina regime people have been looking for. I know the Steve Spurrier days, we all felt, oh, wow, they're great. This really, to me, is this is either it's it or they fail. I feel like if this fails, if this project horribly flips on its head, you might be looking at another coaching change or another push from the fans to be like, we don't need this. But I'm really excited to see what Spencer Rattler and this team can eventually do. I really think it's going to be a tough year for them. Looking at their schedule, you have a lot of really, really, really good teams who can, on a consistent year basis, perform in the SEC, as well as some out-of-conference teams that may even come up and surprise you. I mean, you can't really be too safe sometimes. You know, you might think you have a lock in a game and, you know, that game gets flipped on your head by one or two mistakes or one or two injuries. So for me, if this South Carolina team is very cohesive and they get 8 wins this year, I would call that a success in their books. And, you know, they can build a dynasty through the success this year and bring in more recruits over time.
Okay. I see Rattler ain't playing Kansas every week this year. This River Lightning dude's got to chill on my boy. Listen, he's less athletic Patrick Mahomes, and I'll stand by that.
So now we're on to our next section. This section I kind of may have stolen from an NFL podcast. If you guys know the podcast, you might. It is our most watchable teams for the 2022-2023 season of college football. This is very broad. It's the teams you most want to watch. Those teams that have good matchups, have good players. Who do you want to see playing on a week-to-week basis? If you turn on the TV at the 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock game slot and you see they're on, you got to watch them. I mean, who's that for you guys?
This might be a cop-out answer for me, for our longtime listeners, but Oklahoma for sure. I think that there's something in the water in the Big 12 where they just have the most entertaining games. Like, for my money, that Texas-Oklahoma game last year was the most entertaining football game I had ever watched. It was insanity. But, you know, they're in the Big 12. You know, they got a quarterback who has sustained a lot of success at the FCS level at UCF and Dylan Gabriel. And I think, I forget what the name, Lubby, I think is their coach is the coach from UCF transferred to Oklahoma as well. He was their quarterback's coach now, I believe. And then Oklahoma is also bringing in Brent Venables, who's supposed to be a good defensive coordinator, but, you know, it's the Big 12, so it doesn't really matter anyways. But I feel like if you want to watch games where the over hits and the team who's supposed to win isn't winning by as much as they should be, I don't think there's a better pick than Oklahoma. I think that's why they're my favorite team to watch every year. And then give me some time to think about a second one.
All right, I'll hop in here. I love watching Oklahoma as well, but give me Ohio State. Obviously, I just want to watch Stroud and Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. Destroy pretty much, and give me a sleeper. I really want to see what Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams is all about at USC.
Okay, so 2 very good picks. Oklahoma, to me, seems it's going to be a very interesting watch because I think this is really like a testament of, you know, is this team set up to be good after the Exodus? Maybe, maybe not. It's really going to be a week-on-week basis. Everyone probably knows where my allegiance lies this year. It is UK. I think, you know, this is a team that is returning a lot of guys. You know, we've really built for this moment, and I'm excited to see what they can do. Schedule-wise, you know, not playing a ton of like high-ranked teams, but by the end of the year, I think a lot of these SEC teams are going to be up in that top 20 of college football with just how good their recruiting classes were with the transfer portal. You know, these are going to be really high-tier games, and I'm excited to see what Kentucky can do. My expectations, not the highest. I'd probably put them at, like, I'd be really good, like in the 7 to 8 wins, you know, really good, make another bowl game. But, you know, if they really could kick it into gear, that'd be great. I'm not going to say college football playoff. I may have said it in private a couple days ago, but I'm not going to put that out there because I know I don't want to bite the big one on here for that when we make it to the last 4 games and I'm getting cooked for
when
UK.
South Carolina beats Kentucky.
That's going to be an interesting week, Austin. I hope you're ready.
Oh, I'm born ready. Spencer Rattler was born ready. All right.
Okay.
Austin, you have your second team?
My second team, I think so. This is another kind of cliched. Well, but Michigan, the U of M, you know, the greatest university in the world. Love those people up there. Great town. I think that this will be a very interesting shift in identity from Michigan teams that we've seen in the past. I feel like in past years they've been um, their identity has kind of been good defense, run the ball, Big Ten platitudes, those kind of things. But I think that this year more than any, they finally have a quarterback with 5-star pedigree in JJ McCarthy, who performed very well when he was able to be in last year. And they have a stable of very solid playmakers, including Blake Corum, Ronnie Bell. There was somebody else who I'm forgetting. Eric All is a really good returning tight end. They just kind of have they are built differently. No, not saying built it. You know what I mean? They're built differently than they have been in years past. Where I feel like if things click for them on offense and McCarthy finally kind of owns up to that 5-star mantle, they could be scoring with the best of them. So I think that it should be interesting to see how they perform this year, because I think that they're going to win in just a different way than they did in years past.
Well, Austin kind of took my point. I really like Michigan, and I think a lot of people, haven't looked at this Michigan team, and it's not a team that I feel like jumps off the page unless you watched a lot last year. And last year they were really good, and I think they're going to be even better this year. And people are saying it's crazy. I really do think they should have been at 5 where Notre Dame was, and maybe shift that down, move Texas A&M down to 8. I think it was a really good team that showed flashes last year that, we're going to be able to step up and we're going to be able to play that brand of college football that, Michigan is like synonymous for. So if they really gel together, which, it's a good team of returning players, JJ McCarthy got a first year to really learn the ropes. It's going to be a really good team to watch. I think by the end of the season, I wouldn't say it's crazy to not see them in a top 4, and maybe even see them push somebody like an Ohio State or an Alabama to play a very tough game.
And I mean, I just want to put this out there. It's been almost 2 years now since Ohio State has beat Michigan in a football game. So just remember that.
All righty. So we talked about our most watchable, but we just got over our most watchable. Now we're going to talk about 2 teams that we think are going to have the biggest improvement this year. So we're talking about a player, a team. It doesn't really have to, I said team on there, but I think, a player or a team that, you think is going to make that leap from, he maybe wasn't as good as we thought he was to, wow, he's superstar, or this team is really excelled at this level of football, college football they're playing at, with a new scheme, with a new blah, 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 whatever you think is going to suit a player or a team the best.
All right, I'll start us off here. If you said player, I'm going to go back to Clemson here and take the quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. I believe he'll have a great year, not in the Heisman category or anything, but I believe he'll take it back to 2 years ago when he stepped in for Trevor Lawrence and played amazing against Notre Dame. I believe he can bring that caliber of football back to Clemson, and Clemson will be very good this year. And my number 2, I heard you talking in the comments. Somebody was saying IU. So I'm going to talk a little bit about IU here. They were 2-10 last year. I believe they make big improvements. They had 35 people out for the year last year, and that is why they sucked. And then they went so far down. I believe if those players return, I believe they can have a solid year in the Big Ten.
IU, I'm not so for sure about, but we'll see what they can do. We're not going to hold them to the highest, but maybe 4 wins is a big improvement there. I mean, I wouldn't be mad of doubling my win count from last year. Austin, who do you got on there? I feel like Spencer Rattler has to be on here somewhere.
Well, I mean, can you really improve if you're already the best? That's my question.
You can play the full year.
Yeah, okay. So I think that obviously I feel like Spencer Rattler should be on this list in terms of and just teams in general. I think that they had legitimately one of the worst quarterback situations in college football last year, to having I don't care if you absolutely hate Spencer Rattler's guts. You can't name 10 college football quarterbacks that are better than him. Like, going from one of the worst to one of those kind of guys who has a Heisman level upside. is huge. And in a sport where quarterback is such an important position, I think it's hard to argue against seeing a big improvement coming out of South Carolina, and especially Rattler, who was kind of out of sync last year. He kind of got away from what his strengths were. I don't think he didn't record. Oh, no, what was it? It was something about how like last year he had like the best passing grade when targeting 20 yards downfield, but then at the beginning of last season he didn't like complete a single pass those 20 yards downfield, which is kind of a swingy variancy kind of thing. So I think if he regresses a little bit to his established mean, he should be great, and I think South Carolina will also be great. And then
okay, you have a second one.
I do kind of want to say Texas. I know they had a big recruiting class, and I just think it all hinges on Mr. Ewers, because he had the highest like composite 5-star score ever, right? Something of that nature.
I believe so. Something like that nature.
Yeah. And I think that when you have a quarterback with that level of pedigree, anything is possible. And I think that, they were a little inconsistent last year. And if Quinn Ewers can step up, I think that they can challenge Oklahoma for the Big 12. But I think that just getting that elite pedigree quarterback is a big deal for a lot of teams. And I think that Texas is another team who benefited a lot from the transfer portal. So I want to see what they can do with their resident 5-star quarterback.
Okay, I wouldn't say that much for Texas, but for me, I think the teams I'm looking the most to make the leaps, it's a very interesting team. I think is going to make the biggest improvement is realistically, I'm going to go with Pitt. I know we saw a very shaky game last night out of that team, not probably the best from both sides, from West Virginia and Pitt. Watched majority of the game, but I think this is maybe where they're going to make that step. I know they lost Kenny Pickett, but in return got a Keaton Slovis, who I think looked very good. Some of his picks, were a little bad. They're not very good in his progressive reading of the field, but I think they're going to mesh together really well, and they showed it last night. They were very resilient even when down. They're willing to step up, play very good football, and that defense I feel like only gets better. I know it's week 1, you're one of the earliest game times, you're playing a rival. Sometimes you make mistakes, and I think if they iron it out realistically, I wouldn't say an ACC championship is that far away. It might not be this year, but I think they're going to make that step from wow, last year wasn't an outlier year to wow, we're actually pretty good and we can compete with the big dogs in the ACC. And then for my second, I think I'm going to go with that Ohio State defense. At moments last year, it seemed like, it wasn't completely there. They let up a lot of running, gave up a lot of explosive runs. I think with a new defensive coordinator and Jim Knowles and that scheme that he brings from that Texas, he uses what's called the Leo linebacker, which is basically one of those freak athletes you have on your team. And Ohio State possesses a lot of them, and that guy is dedicated to solely stopping the run. It's going to be interesting what they play in box combinations. Are they going to go to too high? They're going to play robber and man. It's going to be a very interesting team. And I think I look at them to be, one of those top defensive teams this year with a really good defensive coordinator that's going to allow them to, get into those tough Big Ten games and say, all right, we're just going to shut this guy off. We're not going to let David Bell go out there and get 250 yards, even though David Bell's not in there anymore. But you're going to have to play those guys, and they're going to have to be really good at getting up and shutting those guys down quick into games. So for me, Ohio State's defensive unit, I think is going to make miles of improvement and probably end up pushing them to a really good national championship.
As much as I don't want to root for Ohio State, they do look very good this year.
I don't like Ohio State either, but, they look really good. And, I want them to be there, but I also can see that if injuries and other things may play a factor into it, there might be something that happens along the season. it's just such an unpredictable thing at week 1. All right, gentlemen. So this was one of my favorite segments. It's called Who's Making It and Who is Faking It. So pick one player, team, or coach you think that is going to be great this year, and then one team you think coming into week 1 might be faking it. They might have a little bit of fluffing in the numbers. They might got a little bit of fluff from that AP Top 25 poll.
All right. So I think a team that I really like this year, even though I had a futures bet on them that they made at the beginning of last year that if it turned out, I would have made like 13-1. I love Houston. I think that they have a chance to fill up the mantle of, FCS of that Cincinnati kind of left with the departure of Desmond Ridder. And I think that they're an insanely talented squad with a great quarterback and a great wide receiver with a solid defense as well. And I think those are like the check boxes when you're looking for, okay, breakout team or spoiler teams, things like that. And I think Houston has a chance to, I think I can just really see them replacing Cincinnati as like that non-power 5 team this year. I really like them. Clayton Tune, that's my guy right there. So I think they will be making it as opposed to faking it. I think Oregon, they're not good. They beat Ohio State at the beginning of last year. And I think they got kudos for that for like the rest of the year. They got slapped by Utah like 2 times in a row. I know are they in the top 25, right? Does anybody know their exact ranking? Let me pull that up.
Oregon this year's ranking?
Yes.
Preseason poll? They're 11th.
Yes. Yeah, that's a sham. They shouldn't even be in the top 25. They just don't have the guns to compete with some of the other Pac-12 teams. And I just think that Mario Cristobal's there now, right? Is that he went or did he leave?
No, Cristobal's there. Cristobal and Bo Nix were Cristobal
and
Bo
Nix are both there. I forgot about that. He sucks too. Yeah. So yeah, I just think that Bo Nix is going to implode because he's a super inconsistent quarterback, and in a conference that I think actually is quite set at good quarterbacks, it's going to be tough to play catch up. So I think Oregon is faking it.
Okay, Dallas, who do you got?
I'll stay in the Pac-12 for who's making it. I love Utah. We'll get to our college football playoff rankings later. I may or may not have Utah in my top 4. So I think Utah is making it. I think they run through the Pac-12 and they demolish Oregon as well. And my faking it, I got to go Texas A&M, man. I think they are ranked a little bit too high. I understand they gave up I think their defense was ranked 3rd in points per game last year, but that stat was a little misleading. They played games where they gave up 0, and then half their SEC games, they gave up 30+. So very young defense. I think tough SEC. You never know who's going to play well. Tough schedule. I do not believe they will be in the conversation at the end of the year.
I am in agreement. Their quarterback is a 3rd-year junior. He actually beat out Max Johnson, the transfer from LSU. So I haven't seen a lot on him, haven't heard a lot. Even the Texas A&M writers who follow the team all year have no clue who this guy is. So I think that learning curve might just be a little too big. And, they may have just gotten, a little too big-headed after that Alabama game last year. This might not be that Texas A&M that people think they are. I think they're really good, but I don't think they're number 6 in the AP poll good. So I'm actually for making it. It's a really tough question for me because there's a lot of really good teams that you can automatically put in that making it. But to me, I really feel like making it this year, I feel like it's going to be Bryce Young's year. You looked at the numbers last year, he had very spotty games, very hazy games. Texas A&M was one of those games where, he gets put into a situation. He's not very comfortable in the environment. I think this year, you're going to look at him and he's going to be a top tier echelon quarterback. I think when they're projecting him at being that first quarterback that comes off the board, I agree. I think he has all the intangibles a quarterback needs. And I really think this is his year to display it against SEC defenses that may not be as dominant as they were last year. You're not going to have that ball hawking Georgia pass rush that was just ready to get through the line on everybody. I think he's going to lead this Alabama team to a very productive season by, using his legs, using his arm. I think he's going to be, in my opinion, a really good version of Jalen Hurts. If you took everything Jalen Hurts does wrong and stripped it out, that would be Bryce Young to me.
I don't know about that. I love Jalen Hurts. I just don't see the aesthetic. Whatever.
But for my faking it, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack on here for what I'm about to say. I have Georgia faking it. I think Stetson Bennett proved, he is a really good quarterback, but I really think that defense was such an anomaly and anomalies that, you can't take that. You have to take it with 100 grains of salt. You can't have that productive of a defense on the field all year long. You can't have that productive of a pass rush all year long. Regression is terrible. Everyone hates regression, but I think regression is going to hit them. I really do like Brock Bowers, though, and Darnell Washington. Their tight ends are fantastic, but I felt like they kind of got depleted in the draft, and I didn't really see anybody that jumped off the page at me. When I went in to do their scouting reports, didn't really feel like, they replaced such a big talent group with an even bigger one. Maybe next year they might be better, but for this year, I think Georgia, they might win the SEC East. They might slip up. But I don't think they're that top team we all had them at last year. All righty, gentlemen. Do we have any honorable mentions for faking it or making it? Nope.
I can think of.
All righty. So as Dallas talked about, this is our projected college football playoff picture. So you guys are just going to give me your top 4 teams. I'm going to leave them on here, log them in. At the end of the season, we're going to look and see who was right and, unfortunately, probably who was wrong. So whoever would like to go can go first.
All right. I have a controversial one at the top here. I think that the Alabama Crimson Tide will make the college football playoff this year. I know it's a lot of risk with that one, but I think that they have all the parts to do it. I also think that Ohio State will make the college football playoff. And then I also think that Michigan will make the college football playoff. And I think that Michigan will beat Ohio State, of course, but I think they will replace the SEC as the division with 2 teams in the college football playoff. And then for that 4th spot, I think that when I look at, if I'm just trying to pick, and I don't want to pick Georgia because I don't like Georgia. I honestly think Oklahoma has another good shot at it because I feel like their path to the college football playoff is always the easiest. They have great coaches. They still have Oklahoma talent, and they also just go through the Big 12, which I think outside of Clemson and the ACC is like the weakest strong program to weaker division kind of matchup going on. So I could see Oklahoma making it in this year.
Okay. Very interesting on the Oklahoma take. We'll see how that one pans out.
It's just because they play in the Big 12, and I think they'll be the best. I think they could go undefeated in the Big 12.
All right, Dallas, who you got for your top 4?
All right, so I am in complete agreement that Ohio State and Alabama will be in the college football playoff, barring some crazy injuries or anything of that scenario. I do have Clemson bouncing back and making it in the college football playoff this year. I believe they will be the 3 seed. I believe they'll probably lose in the first round of the college football playoff. And at that 4 seed, I was thinking about Oklahoma. I was thinking about different things like that. But as I said earlier, I think Utah will go undefeated. I think this is the year Pac-12 will get in finally, and I think Utah will get the 4th and final slot.
All right. I really like the Utah. I'm going to follow suit here. Of course, you got to put Ohio State, Alabama. I do think Ohio State's going to retain number 1 to the contrary belief that Alabama is always top 1. I think Alabama's going to have one tough game this year. We saw it last year with that Texas State game or that Texas A&M game. They might just get jumped by a team that just wants it more. And that might knock them down. I think and feel like Ohio State is going to have an undefeated season or a 1-loss season, if barring that Michigan the Michigan game's the one that's thrown me off because I could see him losing to Michigan, but I could also see him curb stomping Michigan after losing 2 straight years. There's just no in between for me here. But I think it's going to be a really good Ohio State season. Like Dallas said, barring that crazy injuries, maybe another COVID outbreak or anything. I mean, I think they're still going to be the best team. 3 and 4 is really where I'm struggling. I really like Utah at 3. And I think a lot of people, are seeing the Utah hype kind of shift. We saw last year where they're very competitive. They are very hungry, very competitive. I think they're a team that's going to be willing to step up in rules even when it's tough. So they, for me, are number 3, and number 4 is tough. I'm really stuck on a number 4. In all reality, I would like to put like 5 teams there because I think 5 teams could be a number 4 by the end of the year. But I'm going to go to 2. I'm going to go Michigan. And then it wouldn't be crazy for me to see a Georgia team, maybe collect themselves at the end of the year, maybe give Alabama 2 losses in an SEC championship, because I don't think, no matter my belief, that Kentucky is going to be in the SEC East or South Carolina is going to be out of the SEC East. I feel like, when it comes down to it, Kirby Smart, great coach, might just have that leg up on both of those teams. I'd love to put Kentucky in there. I'm going to pencil them in on my own personal, as I think, they could slide into number 4, but I would say it's either Michigan or Georgia, just simply based on what the season has to hold. You guys have any other honorable mentions? Austin, South Carolina, going to win the national championship.
They're not going to win the national championship, but I think that they have the makeup of the spoiler team of 2022. So
I would agree that they are going to catch a few people. I'm really excited to watch them play Florida. I think that is going to be their biggest test game. Early in the season, tough game. You're going to have to get out and get up on a win. So I'm going to be interested to watch that game. Also, of course, my Cats, when they play South Carolina in Lexington,
it's going to be a house divided day, and
not going to be ready for 70,000 UK fans screaming at him, calling him overrated. So just my opinion, but great picks, guys. And of course, the segment nobody can miss out on. It is our hot takes for week 1 of college football. Who would like to go first? Austin.
Can I go?
Man.
JJ McCarthy's going to finish top 3 in Heisman voting. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh, well, we have a futures bet.
Yes,
yeah,
I do have a
future
futures. Yeah, we'll take a futures out. I think that in the limited amount of time that he did get to play, JJ McCarthy excelled. And on top of having like elite arm talent, accuracy, those kind of things, he also brings a rushing dynamic that very much helps in deciding these kinds of awards, because I feel like if you can be that true dual threat, there's not a lot of people who I think bring McCarthy's skill set to the table, and I think that he could challenge. This is contingent on Michigan's success this year, but I could see if McCarthy is the starter, which he should be. I don't know why they would keep going with Cade, even though I love him. He's my boo-boo bear. I think that McCarthy will lead Michigan to the CFP, and then he'll finish top 3 in Heisman voting.
Okay, very interesting. Dallas, who do you got? What's your hot take for the week?
So I'm not going into the future here. I'm going to stay.
Oh shoot, that's right. It's for this week. I forgot. Sorry.
Hey, we'll accept.
You're good.
We're accepting.
So my hot take for week 1, I was looking at the matchups just to see what kind of hot take I could do. And Austin said it last year. Oregon beat Ohio State early last year. I think they could come in and beat Georgia week 1 this week. I could see them have it riding a high in week 1, beat Georgia, and then I don't believe in Oregon, so I believe they will lose another game, and then they will lose to Utah, so they will lose twice. But I believe they beat Georgia. And then I do have a second hot take here. This one is very dependent on some ESPN things I had. I do put I believe it was $1,000 or $10,000 bet on Utah State winning the national championship. I believe Utah State hangs with Alabama this week.
Yeah, the fact that I actually wanted to say my hot take was that Utah State was going to cover versus Alabama because they won a bowl game last year and they went 11-3. They won the Mountain West. And
they beat Oregon State in the bowl.
Yeah, Alabama only beat 2 teams by the margin that they're predicted to beat Utah State by that margin last year, and they were way worse than Utah State. So it's free money. Just pick Utah State to cover. It's plus 40, guys. Like, come on, what are we doing here? It's Bama, but they're not. This isn't like New Mexico State. All right, this isn't Blue Mountain State. They're gonna put up a decent fight.
Okay, so I'm going big off the board here, gentlemen. I believe that Ohio State will hold Notre Dame to 3 touchdowns or less in the first week. I think this Ohio State team is going to get all over the ball, and they're going to be breathing down the neck of a brand new quarterback in Tyler Buchner, who got limited a number of snaps last year, a lot in the RPO. I think, he's going to make some critical errors, and this team's going to get all over it. And I think they're going to win pretty single-handedly, but, I could be wrong. Like I say, we're not professionals on here, only Austin. But I think 3 touchdowns, I could see it. I don't think I was going to say at the beginning of the week, Ohio State's going to blow them out by 50, but 50 might be a little too much. All righty, gentlemen. So we're all finished up. Just want to remind everybody, next week we are doing the NFL preview show. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. We're going to have a great script. We're going to pick some Super Bowl winners, pick some AFC, NFC division winners, maybe even some of the awards department. Don't know. Haven't completely decided. But we're glad to have you here. Glad you guys want to hang out with us and talk about some college football, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And this has been the SMC show. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys.
Bet the over.
See you, gentlemen.
See ya.